Welcome again to Joan TV Media. It's always a pleasure to have you here with me. On this channel, you have the opportunity to liberate your mind. You'll get to learn your history. Nothing is wrong if you know somebody else's history, but first know yours. Remember, our foreparents paved the way for us to be here. So I ask that you show some gratitude to them by subscribing to the channel, like and share the knowledge. Big up the thing, enough respect, thank you. Today we are taking a trip down to St. Lucia. The more aggressive Caribs arrived around 800 AD and seized control from the Arawaks by killing their men and integrating the women into their own society. They called the island Ewanaro. This is where the Ewanaro International Airport of St. Lucia got its name. The first European camp was started by the Dutch in 1605, now known as the Vieux Fort. A British vessel called Olive Branch was on its way to Guyana when it lost its course and ended up in St. Vincent. The survivors started a settlement there. England took control of the island from 1663 to 1667. In 1666, the French West Indies Company took over control of the island. The British had their headquarters in Barbados and the French in Martinique. During the years, England and France was at war about 14 times, and the rule of the island changes very often. Because it switched so many times between the French and the British, St. Lucia was called the Helen of the West Indies, after the Greek mythology Helen of Troy. St. Lucia became very attractive after the sugar industry developed. In 1779, the island's population had increased. In 1763, like the Dutch and the English on the other island, the French began to develop St. Lucia for the cultivation of sugar cane. They wanted people to work, so they started importing slaves from Martinique and Barbados to work the sugar plantation. In 1779, the population increased to 17,230, which includes 16,003 slaves working 44 sugar plantations. The Great Hurricane of 1780 killed about 800 people. After the hurricane, the island was given back to rule by the French in 1784 as a consequence of the Peace Treaty of Paris. On the sugar plantation, the owners kept slaves and considered them to be their property. In an attempt to lose their identity, the plantation owners gave them whimsical names to humiliate them. As part of the slave trade, slaves were also sold to other plantation owners, given as gifts, and also put up for auction. The main slaveholders on the island were the ones who gave the slaves their names, not their parents. They did this because they want to rob the Africans of their roots. Additionally, the slaveholders, especially the planters, encouraged the slaves to cohabit for reproduction, for continuous labor. 4 years after there was an increase in marriage among free men in St. Lucia, most of the marriages were between old couples who for long had cohabited, according to Hingerman and Higman. States that the rural enslaved were more likely to live as families than the urban slaves. The slaveholders were the children produced by the urban slaves women. In 1815, in the urban era in St. Lucia, especially Castries, there were more enslaved women in their 20s compared to the plantation. Younger slave women was common in the urban area due to the nature of the slaveholders' economic activities. The enslaved women were prostitutes, washerwomen, nannies, and wet nurses. Most of the enslaved men worked on the coffee, cotton, and sugar plantation in comparison to their female counterparts. The urban slaves lived in slaveholders' backyard in the master's negro yard. The French planters taught the slaves French as one of the ways to remove their African culture. However, the enslaved retained part of the African language, mixing it with French to create the language called Creole. The slaves were treated poorly, so in 1791, the enslaved Africans teamed up with the Maroons in Safré, a town which served as the capital of St. Lucia at the time, where they marched and requested their freedom from the British slave masters. Now, Flora Boyce Gillard was an enslaved mulatto. She was born on the island to an enslaved black woman who got pregnant by a white man. Flora worked tirelessly for her master for several years on his plantation and later in his house as a maid when she got older. After the slave masters raped her so many times and their harsh treatment toward her, Flora escaped from the plantation and ran away into the woods where she met several Maroons and lived with them there. She quickly established herself and became a military leader for the French army that resides in the woods. The rebel group was made up of Maroons and slaves who met secretly to plan a rebellion. Flora and her army sought revenge in April of 1795. They were actioned from a tip that was sent to the army that the British were on their way to attack her army. Flora and her army attacked slave owners. They were successful in killing several British slave owners, burning down their plantations, and freeing several slaves who later joined her army. Flora also killed her former master and burned down his plantation. A lot of the slaves later joined her army, which later became the Brigands. The British fled to Castries, which is now the capital of St. Lucia. With the help of the politician colonial administrator Jean-Baptiste Victor Hue, Flora Gallard and her army joined the First Brigand War, which defeated the British on June 19, 1795. The British fled the island. The black people were liberated on the island. After the war, it is sad to say that nothing is said or recorded about Flora, not even of her death. The mystery of her life as her life story not being told or celebrated. There was a second brigand which looted until November 1797 after the brigands came to an agreement with the British not to enslave the people again but to send them back to Africa. They, the brigands and other blacks, were recruited into the 1st West India Regiment, which was stationed in Sierra Leone. If you know of the Piton Flora, then it's the best to know that it was named after the revolutionary Saint Lucian Mulatres woman who played a major and decisive role in the Brigands' War and led one of the guerrilla rebel group against the British at the Battle of Rabat. Maybe St. Lucia can consider naming her a national hero for her contribution or even the impact she has on slaves who were able to see freedom. The British abolished slave trade in 1807. They acquired St. Lucia permanently in 1814. It was not until 1834 they abolished the institution of slavery. But even after slavery was abolished, all slaves had to work a 4-year apprenticeship where they had to work free for their former masters for at least 3/4 of the work week. They got full freedom in 1838. In that year, St. Lucia was incorporated into the British Windward Islands Administration headquarters in Barbados. This lasted until 1885. If you find this channel informative or if you gather any information from it, please don't forget to subscribe for other channels, for other videos. Thanks and respect.